I'm here as part of a testing tool series, and I'm hopefully going to show you how to take your testing to the next level with Snagit. Before I get started into all that magic, I thought it would be good to just kind of let you know who's spitting words at you. My name is Nick Rich. There's my interwebs handle in the lower right. I'm a test lead here on the Snagit program team, and I actually have a journalism background, which actually informs my testing a lot, just in the questions I ask and how I think and how my brain works. I worked in an FDA-regulated environment for 10 years before coming to TechSmith. And with that one, when I was there, I was actually a very heavy Snagit user. I frequently use it for process documentation, validation testing for templates and equipment and programs and things of that nature, as well as just my normal everyday communication with people. And I would notice people would keep asking me, like, how did you do that thing? When I would just send them something super simple and basic from Snagit. And then I would talk to them about it. Yes?
So what is this industry that you worked at, this FDA-regulated environment?
I worked at a blood bank. So blood banking is like paranoia to the extreme, because you never know when an auditor is going to come, and when an auditor comes, they can literally shut down your business if you fail. So that's kind of how the FDA regulates the blood banking system. Okay, so yeah, and I'm getting this one out of the way too, because sometimes I digress into talking about my chickens. I have 10 chickens. These are my ladies, my first group. These are my egg squad. They're the A squad. They have names like Cleopatra, Amelia Eggheart, things like that. And then I got a new crop that just came in. This is Buffer, Bitty, Baby, and Buffy. Yeah. And the little one, people didn't believe me how tiny the little one was, so I put $1 in there for scale. It's a bantam chicken. If you've never heard of that, look it up. They're really cool. Also, just getting this out of the way in case you find me later when you're looking for me on the interwebs, I am a top Google search hit. If you search Axe Cop Unibaby cosplay, because that's a completely common search term, you will find me here. I am the top 2 image search hits. And I don't want you to be distracted, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. That's the picture. When I was in blood banking, I lived in San Diego. I worked for the San Diego Blood Bank. And Comic-Con actually happens in San Diego, so my daughter and I went dressed up as Axe Cop and Unibaby, and she was super psyched that I was going to be showing this in the presentation. So, spoiler alert. Everybody knows what a spoiler alert is, right? I'm about to say, hey, don't worry, don't walk out of the room, but please, I'm going to spoil what the presentation, like the answer to what I feel the problem is. The title and everything gave it away, but I'm really sensitive to spoiler alerts, so I wanted to warn you about it, just in general. So, I have the answer to how you can take your testing to the next level. TechSmith Snagit. Show of hands if you have any idea of what Snagit is. Have you used it before? Okay, awesome, cool. Well, if you don't know, then you're going to learn stuff. And if you do know, I hope I have 1 or 2 things that you are not familiar with so I can teach you. Yes. So the problem, as I see it, that keeps people back a lot of times is communication. It's one of the most prolific problems we have in general as human beings, but especially in the workplace. Most of the time, we think we're communicating like this, when in reality, we're communicating more like this. So there's lots of times on a team where you hear things like, do you understand this if you're reading content? I think they meant, let's kick it back in for more details. We need more clarification. Let's just move on. Just move on. So every team, I think, is always looking for ways to improve their communication amongst themselves and amongst the company and the world at large. So time and time again, I noticed, I see this all the time in my Twitter feed and LinkedIn and everything, communication is one of the top skills listed for testers in particular, and most jobs in general. So the question is, how do we improve our communication skills and take our testing to the next level? I hope that didn't hypnotize you. And if it did, you will think this presentation was amazing. I also like bad jokes. You're going to notice that as well. So before we get any further, fact, the human brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than text. That's why Snagit is a useful tool for us. Actually, this is kind of a fact. Journalism background and everything, I actually looked this up to try and dig into what the actual origin of this fact was that you see on the internet all over the place. And it actually traced back to a 3M publication. It's like a 2-page report in 1997. And it may have been for publications, for publicity, so it's a kind of fact. But the fact is, typically our attention is grabbed easier by images than by just reading text. So, Snagit makes it easy to add videos, GIFs, and images to your bugs, documentation, and team communications. I just like Ron Burgundy too. Or that's, oh, wow, that's embarrassing. Ron Swanson. Please forget you didn't hear that. Wow, that was really embarrassing. So, in other words, this content that you're able to use, your audience will be engaged. Yeah, so that's another dad joke. So, that was a great summary, hopefully, Nick. But how does Snagit get me from this to this? Well, it's my belief that awesome communication starts with awesome content, and awesome content starts with the ability to capture what it is you want to convey to other people. And with Snagit, you can quickly capture any area of your screen of what you're working with. So, there are 3 primary ways to initiate a capture. This is going to be overview for all of you, I'm sure, but I'm going to go through these quickly for those. I'm going to go through them. So, there are 3 ways we can do it. The first is our capture window. Through this, there's a whole bunch of options that has a lot of rich information that you can utilize to add things to your captures and videos before and process them before you even get to the editor functionality. If you don't want to deal with that overhead and you just want a quick capture, you can use what's called our one-click. It hides off on the side of your screen. You can just take captures. And then we have what's called our preset selection, where you can use hotkeys to actually initiate any of that rich customization and then just use it at the click of a button. So here's an example of these things in action. That's the big capture window taking a capture. This is an onion picture. You'll see this later. And then here's an example of the one-click. He hides over on the side. And then last but not least, you'll see the hotkey where just the crosshairs magically appear. Now, when you're going through these slides, you're going to notice Snagit may look a little different. It's because I use screenshots from Mac and Windows. We have Snagit on both platforms. So the first one capture type I'd like to talk about is called time delay capture. As a tester, personally, and hopefully this is your experience too, it's been mine, we never know when we're going to hit a bug while we're testing. So the time delay feature, it provides you with a way to try and track things when you're not actively thinking about it. You can use this. One of the features is delay. If you have to set up and you found a bug, you can delay and get your setup just right and then take a capture after a certain amount of time, up to 60 seconds. There's also interval, which allows you to capture silently while in intervals of up to 100 seconds. So if you want to take a picture of your screen every second, it'll just keep doing that until you stop it. And then if you hit an issue, you can go back and track what's going wrong. And also, it doesn't take up a ton of space because it has the option to delete duplicates automatically when it takes the images. If it detects there's nothing different, it just deletes it. And there's also schedule, which initiates a capture at a specific date and time. In this example, I actually set it for like 5 minutes from now, but I didn't make that for reals because I didn't want to interrupt my program, my slides. So the next one I'd like to go through, and please again, if you have questions, let me know. I'm also a hand talker. I'm sorry if I'm distracting you with the hands. I'll try to keep it down to a minimum. Capture info effect is probably my personal favorite effect as a tester. It allows you to, I have it set up to a preset where I just take a capture of whatever it is I'm testing with, and it gives me automatically the name of the app, the version of the app, the date and time I took it, and the OS build. This last field down here is a custom text view, which I typically tend to set up for whatever computer I'm on. So I have my hardware configuration baked in there too. So I can just take an image, slap it in a bug, slap it in the communication I need to have, and just convey all that information without having to write it down, without having to dig to find version numbers. It just automatically applies it. That's one of my hearts. I like those ones. I find it especially useful when I'm doing testing with browsers. Browser versions update all the time, and different versions break us in different ways, our app in different ways. It depends on how the browsers change. So this is a great way to have that version number just quickly and what we like to call auto-magically. So for tasks that require larger captures, we have 2 primary ways to do this as long as you're in a scrolling content area. There's actual scrolling capture, which is this little dude. I don't know if you've used Snagit, you notice the bubbles. That's what we call them. Little bubble guys show up, and Snagit will take the load off of you and just actually capture that for you and create a large image for as deep as it is. I used image capture or capture info on that too. There's also panoramic capture. These are both useful for capturing websites, whether it be UI or page source, code, spreadsheets, emails, anything you can scroll. And I utilize Pano a lot, personally. And I just messed up my scroll, sorry. Next slide, please. I use Pano capture because it gives you a bit more control. You can actually dictate how much of it you want to do, and it's a lot smoother experience. And if for some reason you need to take a really big amorphous image, like if you're capturing a map area, it allows you to paint an area, and it actually paints the image, and that's what your end image looks like. I've used these, practically speaking, when I've done installer testing. Like, there's tons of files that I have to go through. I will take large pictures and I can compare and contrast and use it as a running checklist of if something's correct or not. I like highlight the ones I've audited and not. If you're going through copyright information in DLLs, I've used it for that. And once you're done, it's a way to progress your work. And once you're done, you have an actual, like, clean, concise, pretty image to actually put in your report that could just be pasted in. There's no extra work for that. All right, dongle's dying, so I got to bend, sorry. Okay, so these are kind of a little more nested. You may not be familiar with these ones. We actually have a feature called menu capture, and it shows you whatever, this basically is a time saver. If you have a day where you said, yep, I'm going to go through all the menus in the app I'm working on, it actually just automatically edits out the rest of the image for you, and it just gives you an image of the menus. So that's pretty specialized, but I thought I'd bring that up in case you're unaware of it. The next one is grab text. I love this guy. I would have loved this when I was in blood banking, because we had lots of legacy documents that were locked PDFs, and we had to retype sections, and it was really laborious. Grab text allows you to just literally take a capture of, that's an image in that video. You just take a capture of the image with the grab text applied, feature applied, and it actually just pulls the text out and you can copy and paste it out. I literally would have probably cried if I had that about 10 years ago. So you've captured your content, even hopefully in some pretty cool ways, but now we're probably wondering, of course, how do we make our images and communication truly awesome? Clicker's working again, yay. So awesome images are kind of Snagit's bread and butter. I mean, this is what I used. Like 80% of my functionality in Snagit before I became an employee here was using the editor to edit images. So with Snagit, you can, within seconds, transform your images to highlight important areas, detail pertinent information for clarity. You can redact information. Again, I use that quite frequently in the environment I was in. Magnify content, and then you can just erase content altogether if you need to. So, so images we've covered, but that's just the beginning when it comes to utilizing Snagit to communicate. It also allows you to record your screen, which is actually very useful when you're testing. You may have been thinking when I was telling you about interval, why would I take 1,000 captures when I can just record a video? You can. This gives you the flexibility. You could do it either way. So with the recording capabilities, you can record your screen, which obviously shares what you're seeing on your system. You can use toggle back and forth to your webcam, which helps make it personal, more personal, and if you need to describe something. You can use your microphone for narration to actually tell the user or the viewer what they're seeing. And you can record the system audio if that's pertinent to what it is you're trying to capture. So being able to show your team what you're seeing, it actually helps, in my experience, make the issue more credible. It allows for easier reproduction steps, and it hedges against the dreaded works on my machine response you can get sometimes. And as a tip, just from experience, when watching screen recordings, it can often be difficult to follow what's going on. It may have been difficult when you were watching that because there was no context for it. If you do narration to do voiceover, it goes a long way in helping your audience understand what it is that's actually going on. And with Snagit, don't worry about if you want to record a 3-hour session or a 2-hour session or half-hour session, don't worry about having to stop and start. You can actually just cut out the content at the end and just say what you want. Okay. So you may have noticed in the video before that I actually shared to an email. That's one of the other powerful things that we can use with Snagit as well. You can take any of your content and share it to some of these very common locations. You can either do this at the time of capture through presets or through the capture window. You just load it so it says, all right, I take an image and it sends it off to Google Drive or to YouTube or Dropbox, wherever you would like to, or even if you want to tweet about it, Sydney. You can also do it after the fact with any of the stuff in your Snagit editor. You can share it after the fact as well. So presets are good for, I have a few places I share currently, and I utilize the presets to just automatically send it to that repo for it. And I don't know if anyone ever experiences this, but there can be internet outages and you have to keep going and testing, or you may be in a work environment that doesn't have internet, which happens. You don't need the internet to use Snagit. Obviously, you do to use some of the functionality here, but in general, you can capture to your heart's content in a non-connected environment as well. Okay, so Snagit also allows you to create GIFs. I'm a GIFer. I'm not a GIFer. I don't know how. I'm not even going to poll because I don't want to cause division. I don't want to start the conversation. Why am I talking about it right now? I talk a lot. Anyway, GIFs, if you're not familiar with them, are a powerful way to show short content. That's a GIF. I've used many GIFs in the presentation so far today. Most frequently used for me is probably in bug reports. I use them in our bug reporting system to show a small snippet of what's going on to help facilitate conversations. We also use them in team chat for various reasons, to show issues or to build team morale, and emails and documentation. And the morale I'm talking about, if you use them wisely, you can actually use them to build team camaraderie. We use FlowDoc, and if you get a certain reputation or if you, whatever, eventually you make it to GIF status. And I made it to GIF status about a month ago. I was testing, and I did a particularly funny GIF, I guess. And I was pretending to be a mind reader, and I have this blue swirly behind me. So now in our channel, whenever you have mind reader, my image comes up with this weird, funky thing. It's fun. It's I felt like I'd made it because I was finally in the GIF stuff. So anyway, now that I've showed you a few ways to generate content, let's take a look at how Snagit saves content after it's created. So out of the gate, just by default, Snagit automatically saves to your library. And all these files are sorted by date by default, and they can also be filtered by file type. Applications that are in the capture, we track all the various applications that are in there, and we filter it by that. So you can see Internet Explorer captures, or Word, or Excel. It'll show up filtered from that as well. And we also have a customization where you can add tags to any capture. For my presentation, I actually created a last presentation tag, and I applied it to all the images I wanted to use in this presentation. So it helps aid in your organization of your thoughts around things for organizing. As a tester, frankly, my library kind of becomes my unofficial diary. I can be very diffuse in my awareness and have to jump all over the place a lot of times. And if I ever need to go, wait a minute, what was I doing on that day? I know I was doing something with blah, blah, blah. I can go back and look at my library and clearly see what it was I was testing on any given day. And it helps jog my memory, or it gives me information that I need. Yeah. Moving on from this one, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you about another powerful interaction we have. It's called Fuse. It's an application, it's an app. I gotta stop being so formal. It's an app that allows you to capture basically anything outside of your computer. The app, why do I keep saying application? The app allows you to share pictures and videos from your phone directly into Snagit. Now, as a tester, this is like the nuclear option for me. If my system completely crashes and it's something having to do with an interaction that's on a beta build or something, then this is a way for me to document what that is and be able to share it with my team. It happens. It's kind of like that weird, scary moment as a tester. You're like, wow, I found something so important that it crashed the system. And then you go, wow, I found something so important that it crashed the system. We need to get on this. So, yeah. So you may be wondering, okay, cool, Nick, that's all well and good, but how does Snagit help me take my testing to the next level? This is a Karate Kid GIF, if you're unfamiliar. It's a classic tale as old as time about a young man who has adversity, and he tries to learn and grow, and he wants to learn and grow from a mentor, and he's like, hey, I need to learn how to defend myself. And he's like, great, clean my stuff. And the Karate Kid, of course, does all of these things, and at the end of the day, he realizes, you know, I can fight. So this is me showing you how to fight, basically. What's that?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry, I should have done spoiler alert. So this is a real-world example of how I utilize Snagit's functionality. This is the template we use on our team to log bugs. Like most templates, it has basic info description, build version, OS device, how do you reproduce it, what are your expected results. So this is what it looks like when I log a bug. I can have all this information quickly at my fingertips. I can add a GIF to the card to illustrate the issue I'm seeing. I can provide a link to the full video in case there's more context that needs to be there. If it's a 5-minute video, I just show the 3, 4, 5 seconds of the actual bad part, or the part that's the focus. I could also fill out the build version and the OS just by using capture info. That information's just right there. And I can leverage my GIF for the repro steps. I mean, literally, this is how I'm showing you how to reproduce it. I don't necessarily have to write step-by-step instructions because it's right there. So you may have noticed, too, like I actually don't have a GIF in this. And that's because I hid it. I've found from experience in bug triages, if you have a lot of motion in GIFs, that it can be confusing sometimes, and the conversations can go off into places that you may not want to. You want to be able to focus. So I actually found a script that allows you to hide your GIFs and hide any content in GitHub, which I use to, if I need to set up a conversation and be like, hey, for context, what I'm about to show you is blah, 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 blah. And then I can actually show it so then people aren't focusing on the image and then not even listening to what I'm saying and then having to rope them in to have the conversation I intended to have about the issue. So, in general, I hope, being a great tester is about discovering elusive, important issues. And Snagit definitely has your back with this. It allows you to capture your screen via images or recording, and it helps you when you hit unexpected issues. Being a great tester is about squeezing the most out of every day. And Snagit is highly customizable. It has a lot of tools that can help you do your job faster, whether it's presets or saved custom effects, as I mentioned earlier. We have one in the editor, those effects we showed you. You can customize any of those and save them for use. And we have a feature coming out that's going to allow you to put that all in one spot, favorites, so all your tools will be condensed. We're pretty psyched about that one. So whether, excuse me, and being a great tester is about clearly communicating with your team. Whether it's just a simple screenshot or it's a beautifully annotated image, videos describing the issue, or a GIF that quickly gives you pertinent information. All that power, just Snagit allows you to help you clearly communicate with your team. So hopefully, now that we know a little bit more about Snagit, we feel more like this. This is the culmination of the Karate Kid. I like this movie, if you can't tell. He has adversity, and he has overcome, and he's able to use the tools and the skills that his mentor gave him to achieve greatness. So it's my hope that the tips and tricks that I showed you today will help you take your testing to the next level. And yes, I've found in my experience the places where you use your custom images, videos, and GIFs are usually very extensive. You can literally use them in almost every facet of your work life. So I think this is a way for you to empower yourself to become an even better communicator. And that's how Snagit can help you. Thanks. That got by QA, sorry. So this is the area where I ask for questions. I have all my stuff up there. In case you're wondering what the second image was in the Google search, that's it. So you don't have to search for that either. I showed you the other one because you could see her cute face. And if you're interested in any of the presets, I have a goodies option where I just put a whole bunch of presets I regularly use. You can just go to this bit.ly and download them and use them with Snagit. And I also have the script for that GitHub click to expand text. Yeah. All right. Question, yes.
I use Snagit quite often for my testing. I don't know how I could do my job without it.
Awesome.
There is one thing that slows me down, though, and I was wondering if there's a way to set the default canvas color to white instead of transparent.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
I can show you before you leave.
good. Because in order for it to copy and paste into like TFS discussion history for Team Foundation server,
Yeah.
it needs to be white.
Yeah, there is
So,
a way to customize
cool.
that. Why do I have 10 chickens? That's a question you're asking, right? I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment for 10 years, and now I live in an acre and a half. So I was like, hey, chickens. I told you I would talk about the chickens if you... That's a good point. We're probably going to have more next year. I actually converted an outhouse. I bought a 150-year-old farmhouse and converted my outhouse into a chicken coop. So the chickens live in an outhouse. It doesn't have a toilet or anything anymore. So don't worry about that. They're happy. Trust me, they're happy.